So I wanted to share with you some things about the kingdom and how the kingdom operates. And that the kingdom is not the church, but the church is within the kingdom. The church, I also want to understand, is the ecclesia. The church is not a group of people that just meets in a body that just comes together on a weekend. The church is a governing body. It's an ecclesia that's intended to bring the presence of God. It's intended to bring the justice of God. It's intended to bring God to the earth. That's the intention of the ecclesia. But the ecclesia needs to understand what the kingdom is. And Jesus said in the parables that when somebody understands the kingdom, when they finally realize that the treasure that the kingdom is, they will sell everything they have to be able to get it. And when they sell everything they have to get that treasure is actually in the world. They also purchased the whole field. Meaning that the intention is that just like God is kind to the ungrateful and the grateful, He's kind even to the wicked. And the Bible tells us that we're supposed to be perfect even as He is. Then we begin to govern just like God. We begin to have an expectation that, like the lady that was able to take the yeast and to put it in the measure of dough, and it caused the entire thing of dough to rise, that is who we are. We can cause everything to rise. See, there's an example of this in the Old Testament when we see the Israelites that were leaving Egypt. And within the group of Israelites that were leaving Egypt, there was also a foreign multitude. Now, what that means is that foreign multitude, God didn't say that they had to leave, that He was actually allowing them to go with Israel even into the promised land. Therefore, they would have been able to go into that land flowing with milk and honey, that land that had those huge, gargantuan grapes, everything that was in there, they would have been able to receive of that same blessing. When we understand this concept, then we can begin to also understand things like Daniel. When Daniel was given the wisdom and understanding that was far greater than anyone else, that wisdom and understanding blessed those that were in that kingdom, and they were not God's people. The kingdom is understanding that the wheat and the tares are in the same soil, receiving the same sunshine, receiving the same rain. And that you don't try to pluck up the tare because you also pluck up the wheat. The kingdom is fish that are all swimming in the same water, and a man comes and catches them and then separates them. Jesus tells us that the things that cause sin and those that cause evil and do evil will be with us until the end of the age. But He also tells us that the kingdom is the treasure. And when we understand the kingdom, we understand that those fish were in the same water. The good fish in the same water as the bad fish. That means they would have had the same nutrients. They would have had the same things available. The only difference was when it's time for Jesus to show up, when it's time for Him to separate them, there will be a separation. And He's the one that will do it at the end of the age. Until that time, the ecclesia as a governing body is intended to go out and show people what the blessing is. Show people what the goodness of God is. To be the Josephs, to be even the Jacob, where the blessing is so obvious on his life that I don't want you to leave because I can tell that once you arrived, God is with you. The blessing's on your life. The kingdom is that we bring that blessing. But beloved, if we believe that the curse is greater than the blessing, see, the only problem with Israel bringing that foreign group with them was that Israel was tempted by them. God didn't say they had to leave, but that group of people began to murmur and complain. And then guess what Israel did? They murmured and complained. And then when it was time for them for the challenge to come and There was a man paid to try to curse them. He said, I can't curse them. They're blessed. I can't even do it. But here's how you can do it. I can't curse them, but they can make a choice that will curse themselves. If you'll get them to hang out with the other women from the foreign nations, if you'll get them to start mingling with them as the men, then they'll start serving their idols. They'll fall. And then the curse will come on them. And then you can overcome them. See, in the kingdom, it's our responsibility to consecrate ourselves from the world. Not to leave the world, but to be in it and not of it. And this is what overcomes the world, even our faith. The belief that we can be consecrated to the extent that we can be separate from the unclean things, but at the same time, we can be the blessing that causes everything to rise.